Alright, so where we left off with the conversation with your parents was your father and mother were explaining that they had met Avi, or the entity within the weapon, and kind of described your father's friendship and history with Tristan. And he basically explained that Tristan went through a lot of heartache and a lot of trouble and problems in his life and a lot of pain, and described it as more pain than one person should endure in a lifetime. And that's pretty much where we ended ended the session whenever we were having the conversation with you and the parents. So if there's anything that you want to pick up like from there, or leave it at that, that's up to you. But
I have no idea. The vibe is totally kind of disconnected for right now, so.
Okay. Do you want me just to refresh? Like, the whole going down to the basement and all that kind of stuff?
Maybe a little?
Okay.
I wouldn't want to do the whole thing again.
Yeah.
But...
essentially, you and your parents went down to the underground basement there at the manor. You had set up couches or chairs. You were going to paint while you were talking, and you basically wanted to know first what your mom knew and whether she was caught up, what information your father had told her. Then, upon hearing that, you basically said, "Okay, this isn't a inquisition. I'm not like questioning you guys or interrogating you guys. I just kind of want to let you know what I know, and we can go from there. But this is." I want everybody to feel comfortable and not like feel like they're being interrogated in some way. You went through and described basically things that you have been finding out with Hydra, and then also mentioned that you had seen Viren and what he looked like, the ring that he was wearing, and then also mentioned that you had seen who you think is Trenton. And you believe to be Trenton. I then went on to describe the reaction of your father. He started out with your mother sitting down in a chair or on a couch, and he was behind her with his hands just on her shoulder, and then he started pacing back and forth as the conversation went on. And then when you mentioned Viren and began to describe him and then describe the ring, he stopped in his tracks as if like pondering something. Your mom and him shared a glance, and at that point he just kind of didn't pace back and forth. Then once you mentioned Trenton, he just went over to a free space that is a chair or couch beside your mother and sat down and just looked at the floor with a blank look on his face. Your mother tried to scoot over and comfort him, and you kind of said, okay, like, I didn't want to hurt you or make you sad or anything like that. And your mother basically said, we knew, your father and I knew that this day probably would come. We didn't know the circumstances in which it would come about, and we hoped that it wouldn't, but it seems like our worst fears, or this day that we thought may come someday, has come. And your father, essentially, after a few moments, got up and gave Sibble a warming hug, basically as someone that hasn't seen like a close or dear friend that they thought maybe like died, or they got news that they passed away, but then they get news back sometime later that they're alive, and then they see them for the first time, and there's just that like, oh, you're alive, and I get to hold you now, I get to like embrace you in a hug, that type of deal. But gave Sibble a hug in that kind of manner, and then went back and sat down, kind of put his face in his hands for a bit, and then went on to a little bit of a history lesson when you mentioned, I would really like you guys to meet Avi. And he said, upon sharing a look with your mother, said, we've met Avi before. Kind of went on a short history lesson with your father and I were actually very close. We were like brothers. Through that connection, your mother and I have met Avi multiple times. I always referred to him not as Avi because I didn't know his name, but it was either the dragon or the entity in the sword. And that essentially he went from there and went on to say that the Belmont family, ever since coming across that sword or being given that sword, the latter parts of the Belmont family line really just were some dark days. And your father, Tristan in particular, really dealt with some stuff and went through a lot of pain, and more than someone should go through in a lifetime. And that's where we ended, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm not gonna make you see off if you don't want to see him. The main purpose of that was just so that way, you knew I wasn't really wandering around by myself ever, no matter, but...
Well, your mother speaks up and says, well, Dear, I don't think that it would be... I mean, there really isn't any... I mean, just because we've met it before doesn't mean that we can't... see him again.
Excited.
I mean...
Or like, oh yeah, that guy.
Is there apprehension for why you would want to? And he just kind of gives her a look of like... just sighs and nods and says, if you want us as a family to speak with the dragon, then I am willing to do that for you if you wish.
I mean, I think it would be nice, but honestly, today's about you guys. It's not really about me.
Well, your mother says, I'm not sure what you mean. Like, about us. How exactly? Like, I don't understand.
The goal of today was not for me to go on this great learning thing and discover all the secrets of anything. Today was just to inform you guys and know what's going on, and I don't know, just that I'm okay for right now.
Okay. Well, if that's what you want. I mean, it's... We don't want to push you. We don't want you to feel like we are pushing you in a certain direction. We want you to chart your own course and live your own life, but we're also here to support you in any way that we can, and we know that you have a lot of questions, and
You better believe I do.
probably more than the average person does when it comes to who they are and where they come from, but
Quite a few.
your mother goes to continue, and your father just kind of puts up a hand like, we... A lot of what your mother and I have done was to protect you. It was for your own protection, and that is why we are so hesitant to mention anything, even though we feel as if you were to learn everything, that your life would be in more danger than it already is. And I know with you being out there with your friends and taking on this organization that you have discovered, that your group more than likely already has a target on your back already. And it just feels like...
See how it could get a lot worse. It's already heading that direction.
And that is exactly why your mother and I are hesitant, because you don't think that it can get any worse, and we know for a fact
I've read
that
how worse it can get. I don't know. I'm sure you've probably heard this speech before. But I want to cut it off before it gets worse. Because I know it can. I went out there thinking that, hey, let's help the world around us because they don't know how good it could be, because it could be like back home. And then I turn around and find back home has just as many weeds. I can't let that sit. Can you?
No. But a lot of this information as well is new to your mother and I. We had no idea that the McLachlans were supposedly involved with this group, or someone from this group. There was a lot of questions and a lot of gray area with some of the things that...
He was grumpy.
What's that?
I just thought he was grumpy.
Yeah, but...
He always told me to stop running in the temple, and I still have little...
A little beef.
childhood memories.
A little beef.
Still a little sour.
Yeah, but a lot of this is new information, and
Yeah.
I mean, we can do what we can to handle things back home, but it's one of those also that you understand, being a free city, there's a lot of villages and towns around us that look to us for leadership and guidance in a lot of different ways, and even some cities around us that look to us for an example and leadership. And I understand that it's probably not best to have someone associated as such as you have described them being in leadership, but at the same time, we can't just go in and just start hacking away at things.
I agree. I don't think that is the approach either.
So, but we will do what we can and see what avenues we can do to take care of this, or at least maybe find out some information and maybe reach out to see if we can get some help elsewhere. I know you and your party or your friends are busy with other things that you are investigating and learning and whatnot. So if we need to reach out to someone else, I mean, and he gets a look of recall on his face, and also that similar to whenever you mentioned Viren and described him. And he says, if this Viren is who your mother and I think he is, it probably is best that you not come home for some time, or at least until we know that this figure is no longer there. Let us do some digging first, though. Let us do some digging to see what connection maybe the McLachlans have with this individual, and who this individual really is, if possible. I mean, you can do the same, but your mother and I would prefer to keep you as far away from this Viren as possible.
That is a nice goal. I also approve of this goal.
Well, then at least we're agreed on that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, you hold the key to your past with you. And it's just a matter of time to find out all the pieces of information that you are looking for to fill in the blanks. It's at your fingertips. It's up to you to take that step on whether or not you want to know all of the truth, or whether you wish to stay as things are now. But that is entirely up to you. If you want to know, then it is not right for your mother and I to hold you back. As for the past of the dragon and all of that I'm afraid we can't help with. But you personally, your own personal past, we can.
I mean, I definitely have lots of questions, but I can wait. I just don't want to make you guys go through this again, all the things, if you're not ready to. Like, take your time.
It's not a matter of us going through it, it's you experiencing it.
Hasn't it already happened?
It has.
Okay.
But it's you connecting the dots and experiencing that revelation, essentially. That is what we are worried about and concerned about.
Be that.
And what that might mean.
As I almost say, it couldn't be that bad. Couldn't be that bad for me.
As I said, your father went through much pain and much trouble in his life. More so than anyone should really endure in a lifetime. But if you wish to know about him and what happened and your past, it is your choice. We cannot make it for you.
I just don't want it to change anything.
Regardless of what happens, your mother and I will always love you as our daughter, and we have raised you and will love you as we always have. Even if you were to not reciprocate that, we still see you as our little girl.
Well, if it's gonna be like this, and you're worried about particularly my reaction, then maybe Avi is a good choice. I've tested this out, and it's for sure, 100% clear. I cannot brew a morbus in there.
That is good to know.
If you're really, really worried about it, it's as good a place as any.
If that's what you want. If that's what you want to do.
I am the luckiest middle child of all times. I cannot express that enough. Like, as far as middle child goes, I've got made. Just so you know, y'all been doing great with middle children. So you know.
At least we did something right in our lives.
Guess I'll, like, hand out, I guess.
Okay. Alright, so you all enter the realm or the space that is within the sword and find Avi there walking, oddly enough, on this like sea of watery glass and just sort of walking around, just minding his own business, and then you all pop in and what? And he immediately like sees your parents and like stops and just sits back and kind of like a dog does, you know, back on his haunches, and puts his, you know, front claws out in front, brings his wings kind of like folded down by the side, and you see like a kind of like a squinted, like eyeing up stare that is going past you to one of your parents, and it's just kind of like a somewhat of a glare, you would assume, but and then just for a few moments and says, "I see you have brought company."
Yeah, we had a whole dinner and everything. I know you don't get those updates until like midnight, but yeah.
Well, that is nice. So what brings you here, then? Is there something I can do or help with?
Just, be cool.
Well, I am the definition of cool.
Yes, of course.
There, you hear a slight chuckle from behind you, probably your father, and you see like Avi kind of like raise an eyebrow at him, and it quickly like stops. A few moments pass without anything said, and then Avi looks past you and sticks a claw up and goes like this and motions forward, and your parents kind of move around in front of you. It's been a while, hasn't it?
He does remember. I was lied to twice. Oh my goodness.
And your father says, "Yes, it has indeed. I would say, how are things, but I can't imagine that much has changed other than you're not wielded by Tristan anymore, and you're wielded by our daughter." And he the dragon Avi raises an eyebrow, and your mother says, he doesn't mean any offense, you know, this is as awkward for him as it is for you. Well, for all of us, really. And Avi lowers the eyebrow and says, "Yes, I suppose it is." Well, I will
King
say
of
and
cool, king of
compliment on you
awkward.
both that you have done a fine job in raising this one. And your father and mother kind of give a little bit of a bow and thank you. He says, "So, I can't imagine that you came here to catch up." Or maybe you did. Is there anything you want to say before I keep going?
I mean, king of cool, king of awkward. Let's keep this going.
Okay.
Ugh.
Your father says,
Gross.
if I remember correctly, you were able to show things in the mind of your wielder. Is that correct? Things of the past that you were around for. Avi says that is correct. If I can directly remember them or I was present for them. At least, don't have to immediately be present, but in the close proximity. I believe, your father says, I believe Sibble, and he kind of glances back, wishes to know what happened to her father, to Tristan. And you may not remember all of it, but her mother and I can fill in the gaps if needed. Perhaps you can pull from our memories even and be able to feed them into her mind to show her, if that's possible. Avi kind of sits up and gives looks up in a thinking manner, and then we can try it. It's possible, maybe. I haven't tried it that way before. Your father just kind of glances back and lets out a hand, and your mother the other hand, and Avi is kind of encircling both of them. It's up to you to whether or not you want these answers or not.
Dang. Well, if that's.
We'll say Avi has a claw in the middle, and your mother and father have a hand each on his claw, and then each are extending a hand out to you.
Gotcha. Alright. Well, that's what we're doing. Let me let my dog out. He's been poking me this whole time.
Alright, alright.
I'm sorry, I'll come right back.
Alright.
Seeing.
Alright.
So much more than I thought I was gonna get.
Alright.
Everyone's so willing to say all the things.
So,
how unexpected.
You take the hands of your father and your mother, and immediately your vision gets pulled in. I'm going to describe this as if you're watching we'll say a cutscene or a movie scene, just kind of has things go, and it's like a kind of like a slideshow, but like the scenes play out. Your vision comes from black to you are in a tent, and there is a elven man in the tent. It is raining outside. Just heavy, heavy rain. You don't recognize this individual. He has pretty long silver white hair, elven, and has pretty pale skin, and has no armor on at the moment, but has like robes that you would expect like someone being on like a battlefield essentially, but like in the encampment, and their armor's off to the side, like on set up on a mannequin, and he's just kind of in his like casual robes walking around in his tent, and his back is turned to you, and he turns around and you see his face, and this looks to be a moon elf that seems to be in his probably like his what we would consider like 30s, and he's like looking down at something, and he looks up, and the camera kind of rotates a little bit, and you see a figure, a familiar looking figure. You see Brailiel there in this man's tent, and you see kind of like the scene would switch to like a paper kind of like falling down and then hitting the floor gently, and you see this figure then go from standing to getting down on one knee, and Brailiel says,
"Wow.
Rise." And this figure rises, and Brailiel says, "You have been chosen by the Creator for great things." And he gifts this to you, and he reaches back behind his cloak, and seemingly out of like thin air pulls out a sword, similar to how you initially found Avi before you had him transformed into a rapier, but now it is a broadsword, and it is gifted to this elven individual. This elven individual takes it, and the camera kind of like focuses down to like you lose sight of Brailiel, and it's just him holding this sword. And then when he looks up, Brailiel is gone.
Hopeful.
The sound around seems to like deafen as like Brailiel is in the tent, and the rain sound kind of seems to stop. It's almost like they're in like a separate dimension / like realm, but also in the same place. But then when he looks up, you can hear the rain start again. You hear footsteps approach the tent, and you see a soldier enter through the curtain that is the entrance to the tent. And the soldier says, "Althiel, it's time." And the scene fades. Fast forward to a not familiar face, but what looks to be a half-elven moon elf that has white hair, but you can definitely tell that he is half-elven and not full elven. and you see several scenes of him fighting through with a party, essentially fighting through and struggling through a fight, but against Vela Morbis. And they come out on top, and as they're going around kind of seeing what these individuals had on them and trying to gather information, they kind of come together, recall any information that they gathered during the fight or anything that they saw, and then head out together. The scene ends and fast forwards, and you are greeted with a familiar scene that you've seen before, and that is, but more of it, and it's not so zoomed in, so to speak. And it's the scene of Tristan walking through the streets, and it is raining, and he's walking through streets of a town or city, and he's on his way home, and comes to a familiar looking home. It looks a little different, but you recognize the area and the spot, and that is the manor in which your party now resides. And there at the door, you see a elven woman. Let me make sure I'm saying correctly. Yes, an elven woman with like jet black hair, long, beautiful jet black hair, and hair is kind of like majestically like flowing in the wind as the rain and the wind is blowing. And he comes home, gives her a great big hug. They, PG-13 kiss scene, the whole 9 yards. It's all romantic, it's all romantic and everything. Everybody's happy. Oh, the happy couple, that whole deal. And
use it as a quote. And they PG-13, and then we're moving on.
And they enter into the manor, and the door closes. Scene ends, and during this whole entire time, there's kind of a bit of a narration going on. Between the voices seem to switch between your father, your mother, and Avi. As this scene starts with Tristan, it starts with Avi speaking. He says, Avi, like many of the Belmonts after the Great War, Tristan took up the family business and became an expert in hunting Vela Morbis, and he was very good at it. At that time, this is when it switches to him walking through the streets. He was a happily married man, and he was married to a beautiful elven woman named Nelreel. And this is when you see her standing in the doorway. The two of them were very happy and lived in the Silver Vale, or as you would know it now as Morningdale. And this kind of ends as they enter into the manor and the door closes. Your mother's voice then chimes in and says, the two of them had a baby boy together, and the scene changes to them standing outside of the manor, the happy couple, like, standing in front of the house, and there's Tristan, with his arm around Nelreel, and she's holding this baby boy, black hair. You can tell that he's elven, or at least half elven, and they're just smiling kind of as the camera zooms out from them, and it's just a beautiful day outside. The two of them were happy, and it shows different scenes of, them throwing the child up and the kids laughing, and, they're catching them and they're spinning around, like, typical scenes that you would see in a movie of everybody just, life is good, there's no problems, they're happy. And The two of them were happy together, and they had many good years and happy years together. But that all changed one fateful day, and the scene changes, and your father then chimes in. Tristan was hot on the trail of a powerful and influential Vela Morbis. And you see Tristan walking through a city streets that you're not familiar with. It's raining, there's thunder going on in the background and lightning, and you see him kind of like stop at this a city corner and kind of like peek around, and you see that there's kind of similar kind of to the gates and the grounds for the Slayers Guild, where there's obviously a very fancy like manor or structure or something like that in the distance, but there's like a walled exterior around it with a gate, and you can tell that he's kind of looking up there and observing something. And your father continues with, he was hot on the trail with of a powerful and influential Vela Morbis and its coven, which is it's a group of other Vela Morbis that also basically live together. But when returning home, and the scene changes to what you are familiar with, Tristan walking through familiar streets once again back at the Silver Vale or Morningdale. Upon returning home, Tristan found Nelreel and the baby boy brutally murdered. And this is a familiar scene that you see him come in. You've seen bits and pieces, like flashes of this before, but this you see in its entirety and completeness of him coming home, and the door is slightly ajar, and you can tell that it's been like kicked in, and there's like a bit of the door that's just like broken off the door, and it's just like hanging there ajar. He enters in, and right there in the foyer is the body of Nelreel, and a little off the side as she is kind of like reaching towards, and there's another body there, and there's just blood like all over the floor, like splattered, like it just looks like complete butchery essentially. And he just falls down to his knees and just puts his hands up in his face and begins just sobbing. And you can tell that he's like trembling because he's upset and he's mad. And he just lets out like a scream of "Ah!" And as he does that, and his eyes are closed, and he's just clenching with every muscle in his body. And as he opens his eyes, and you can see like drips like falling down from the hat that he's wearing, and it seems like it's in like slow-mo, I guess you could say. And you see a look of realization in his face, and you see on the wall, written as if by a finger, but it's written in the crimson of the bodies that were there, "You should have kept them more secret, ... Belmont."
That's brutal.
You see Tristan's eyes just begin to fill with rage to the point where his eyes almost go like bloodshot. Like all he's seen is red. Like he's mad. Filled with that rage and hatred, Tristan rallied his hunting party, and they relentlessly pursued every lead that they had on this powerful Vela Morbis and its coven. And you see during this that he is just going, it's that typical scene of like the hero going in and just like throwing stuff in like gym bags and just like, you know, gearing up to just like we're going and we are just assaulting the fortress type deal. Like, it's just, he's down in the basement of the manor, just tossing things into bags and pouches and things like that, grabbing things off of shelves, and he's loaded for bear, and he's going out for blood. The scene switches to Tristan staggering out of that very manor that you saw him viewing around in secrecy, trying to peek around. And you see him kind of exiting the gate of that estate, and he is staggering as if wounded in some way, and he is the only one leaving the estate. Where once he went in with an entire hunting party, now he is the only one leaving. And he is covered in crimson and blood. The manor in the background is going up in flames. And he reaches the outside of the estate and gets only a few feet past the gates and just falls down to his knees once again, drops the dragon onto the cobblestone that is the street, and just cries out as the rain is coming down and just pouring down on him. Avi then intervenes with the narration and says, "Overwhelmed with loss and grief, Tristan returned home," and you see, after a few moments of him being in the rain, him coming home to the estate, and you see him head down towards the underground basement that you and your parents are in now. Tristan returned home and sealed his family's vault, and you see him sticking the sword into the wall that is there and locking it. And you see the symbol there that is on the door flash and then go dark. And he heads up the steps. And he vowed to never touch the sword again. He hardened his heart and vowed that he would never love again. And you see him essentially put the sword up on like a mantle, not in the manner that you are accustomed to, or his home that you have seen him in several of the scenes. He chose to spend part of his family's fortune on buying a farm. And you see the farm that you found, I forget his name. That you guys got.
Cathorn.
Yeah, Cathorn. That's right.
I hate that.
He chose to spend part of his family's fortune on buying a farm to blend in and to fade from the world's view. There's a few scenes of him going out by himself, tending to the field, just doing typical farm stuff. Though he looks and is built like an adventurer, but he's out there, doing farmer stuff.
Diggy hole.
Yeah, I'm digging a hole, a diggy hole. Your mother then chimes in. Years later, Tristan met a beautiful young woman, a human, whose name was Annabelle. Tristan, and you see Tristan out there, like, doing stuff in the fields, and you see this beautiful young human woman approach him, although she looks like a peasant. She doesn't look like she comes from any type of nobility or royalty or anything like that. Approach and say, "Excuse me, sir, could you possibly point me in the direction of the town hall for this area? I need to speak with someone, and I'd like to possibly move to this town. And you can see that he's kind of like agitated that someone is approaching him, and he just wants to be left alone. And like I said,
No.
he's hardened his heart, and he just doesn't.
Grumpy old
Yeah,
man.
essentially, but he's not old. Um,
Well, grumpy young guy.
but he kind of like eventually like he keeps working, but she keeps he's like, excuse me, like, could you help me, please? And he's not looking at her; he's just like minding his work. And he kind of like looks at her, and it's one of the cliche of like the sun is hitting just right, the wind like
No.
blows, just at the right time, and it's just like,
Don't shoot.
oh,
Maybe I'll help you.
yeah, and it's just like he looks, and
No.
for a moment, his heart softens before he says, goes back to his regular just demeanor, and yeah, it's just up the street there, make a right, and then go down like a block, and then it should be right there on your left, should be the entrance. And she like gives a smile and nod and says, thank you, have a nice day, and then just keeps going on. And he goes back to work, but then kind of gives that like glance up as she's like walking away.
Yo.
Your mother continues with, Tristan didn't want to admit it at first, but it was love at first sight. Sometime later, the two were married, and you see a wedding, not a grand one, just almost like a peasant type wedding. The two of them, have the kiss there at the wedding and whatnot, and they're happy and giggling as they go home like the first time. And it fast forwards to
PG-13.
sometime later, the two were married, and they had a baby girl. And you see a familiar scene once again of the two of them standing there out front of the house, and he's got his hand around her, and you see a baby girl, but instead of black hair, silver hair growing out of her head. Tristan, once again, was happy. Your father then chimes in and says, but unfortunately, it did not last long. And the text would show up on the movie saying like so many months later or years later, and you see Annabelle working in the kitchen, cooking a meal, and you see this little baby girl, a little bit older now, maybe like a year old, sitting like on the floor just playing with something. And the scene switches to Tristan being out in the fields close to the house and working the fields. Let me find my place here. Tristan's past had caught up to him. One day, a stranger showed up at the farm looking for Tristan Belmont, and you see a figure approach the house, the front of the house, and Tristan's out there working the field and sees this figure approaching the house. And he kind of drops the rake and heads over, and you see him approach the back of this figure. And at this point, you see like a quick scene of Annabelle taking the child, and they're heading upstairs, taking either to put the baby to bed or something like that. And it switches back to Tristan approaching this stranger, and Tristan says, excuse me, can I help you? And the figure turns around, and you can immediately tell that this figure is a Vela Morbus just by looking at him. And the figure says, yes, do you know perchance a Tristan Belmont around these parts? Tristan had not gone by that name for some time now, as he assumed another identity when taking on the role of a farmer and shunning his family's tradition of hunting Vela Morbus. Tristan Belmont, even though he hadn't gone by that name since he started his life as a farmer. Taking one look at the stranger, Tristan knew what this stranger was. You see, kind of like the camera pan, and it's kind of like that tumbleweed type deal goes across the screen, and it's just like, you know that something's about to go down. Yeah, you know that something's about to go down, and there's a battle that ensues, and Tristan is basically just fighting for his life and using farmer tools like like pitchforks and things like that, fighting this entity off. And the battle ensues, but in the end, Tristan prevails despite being gravely wounded. And you see him essentially like on one knee and like trying to stand up, and there's that Vela Morbus figure on the ground, and you see like the head has been taken off of this figure, and you see Annabelle kind of come out from the house and through the door and is holding this baby girl. And Tristan looks at her and says, "My past seems to have caught up with me." And you see the scene change to him being up in the bedroom and starting to load things as if he's going out again, but he's setting out on himself, or setting out on his own by himself. And he's like, I'm sorry, I thought that this was behind me. I'm sorry to have brought you and our daughter into this. I can't believe what I was thinking. I thought this was all behind me. And you see him take like a quick glance at the dragon, the sword being up on the wall, as he now has made his way down to the first floor and is in the kitchen grabbing a few things. And Annabelle the whole entire time is like, "Honey, I don't know exactly what it is that you did in the past or what your past entails, but we're married. I mean, it's like we can figure this out together. I mean, that doesn't mean you don't have to go anywhere. Like, maybe I can help, or maybe we should like go to the temple, see if anybody can help." And he goes, No, it's too much. I need to just leave you and our daughter alone. You're better off without me. And she says, "What about your friend from your past? What was his name?" And you see him like, Tristan's like heading towards the door and kind of just stops, lets the bag down. "Tyrone?" And she's, "Yes, like, maybe he can help. Maybe, like, sure, you might have gave up everything, but I'm sure he would be willing to help. I mean, maybe we should try reaching out." The narration then kicks in during the scene, and Tristan knew that if he wanted to protect the ones that he loved, he had to send them away, far away. However, Annabelle would not leave him to face this alone. So they sent for a dear friend of Tristan's past to look after their daughter. And you see Tyrone, the scene changes to Tyrone now coming to the farmhouse, your father. And you see Tristan and him having an exchange of words, but the camera is back with Annabelle as she is essentially looking down at the baby girl and kind of rocking back and forth. And you're just hearing like the mumbling of the conversation going on with Tristan and Tyrone. And Annabelle says, You will be taken care of. You're going to be looked after. They're going to take care of you. Your father and I are going to go away for a little while, but we'll be back. And you see like a tear kind of run down her cheek, and she kind of holds the baby up to her chest one last time and says under her breath, I hope. And you see her walk towards Tyrone and hand the baby over to Tyrone. Tristan, as Tyrone goes to leave, says, if anything is to happen to her mother and I wish you to continue to look after our daughter and to adopt her as your own. Treat her as if she was your own daughter. But whatever you do, spare her from this life, if it's at all possible. And the scene fades to black as young Tyrone is walking down the street away from the home with the baby girl in his arms and Tristan and Annabelle in the background looking on as he walks away with the baby. And the vision fades, and you are back with your parents and the dragon. That is how your mother and I came to have you in our lives, Sibble. That your father says.
You thought about?
What's that?
You thought I was gonna be mad about that?
Not mad, but afraid of what you might think or what you might do. And it's essentially your whole world being turned upside down. Everything that you thought you were or who you were. You were never ours, really. You were given to us. And we are thankful for you. As if a gift from the Creator, in a sense, but at the same time, your real parents, to our knowledge, we've never seen them in all these years, and it is assumed that they perished at the hands, or maybe running, or attempting to...
We don't know.
We do not know.
Okay.
That was the last time that I saw or heard from Tristan or your mother. But this news of Trenton is concerning because your father was very adamant and convinced that he was dead, murdered. So I don't understand.
I mean, I was pretty convinced too until I saw. Hey, did that memory thing work? Was it some of your memories and Avi's memories?
Avi's memories essentially kicked in with Elthiel being gifted the sword, and then some of the fighting and things like that with Tristan before the murder of his first wife and child. But that is where your mother and your or where Tyrone and your
you can show other people's
it's mainly the dragon taking, not that they saw all this stuff, but them describing it, and it's the dragon kind of projecting it and putting it into images for you.
Okay.
And there might be a little bit of a help from the creator, kind of like filling in the gaps of what it actually looked like.
Alright.
We'll just go with that.
I mean, round 2, I'll show it back. This is what I saw. I know verbally describing it doesn't match. Like, he was a person, and to say he had hair would be to say he had some. Like, so...
Okay.
Uh, I'll try and show you what I saw if I can, as
Sure.
best as I can. And you tell me.
Alright, so you are showing what part? Or parts? Or
All right.
describing, I guess. I mean, this is stuff that you actually saw,
Right.
so it's not...
Yeah, I did actually see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'll just that whole far site with
Viren and
Byron
assumed to be
being
Trenton.
with Thyrani. So Byron talking to Thyrani. Thyrani saying, "Yeah, I don't know yet. I'm waiting for information." Him portaling down into the cellar place with the cages, going up the stairs, seeing Mr. McLaughlin, and then the Tristan-like figure in the back. Oh, and because I guess I'll throw in Brailiel shindig a little bit too.
Okay. So, you show this, and then the vision comes back to you guys being in together again, and your mother and father share a look, and that Viren is definitely the same Vela Morbis that Tristan was after.
But you lit him on fire.
There are many unknowns when it comes to some of these more powerful and older creatures. Primordials, if you will. They are very resilient and very hard to kill. It was assumed, and Tristan said that he had destroyed, but perhaps something happened, or maybe it was a lapse in judgment. He was, at the same time, probably not entirely in his right mind, as his wife and child had been brutally murdered, so he might not have been completely thinking straight, so it's hard to tell. If that is the case, and this Vela Morbis is still alive, then more than likely that is who him and your mother eventually found out and were possibly tracking, and was probably the one that sent that stranger to the home that day. That would be my assumption. As for that young, dark-haired individual in the back, has a very similar likeness to Trenton, which, granted, he was an infant, but it's very, very close. It'd be I would say not 100% sure that is him, but it is easily a 90% sure that is Trenton. How that's possible, again, I do not know.
I have no idea. But Brailiel seems to think it's a thing, so.
What's that?
I said Brailiel more or less seems to think that that's the case, so.
That it's Trenton.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, who are we to question?
Say, that poor immortal got both ends of the spectrum with this family. It was like, oh whoa! And then the other one was like, are you actually cool? Because I don't know. He got both ends.
Oh my. That is very
Poor
true.
immortal.
That's very true.
He has experienced the spectrum.
Okay. Um, yeah. I can't think of
Yeah.
anything else unless unless you want to like rule or try to think of something that could explain some of it or whatever. I mean, that's up to you, but
Um, I've almost done this a couple of times.
or unless you have like questions of like something that wasn't made clear with the revelation that I tried to make here.
Think I got most of it.
Okay, like
Yeah.
that doesn't make me feel all that confident
Well, I mean,
though.
like,
I want this
most
to
of
be like
that
crystal
before.
clear of like
A lot of it is
what
doubled
went
up.
down. So
I guess I don't know. Just I feel like I knew most of that, and how I came to be with the Van Mostems was a lot, say, calmer than I anticipated. So I'm actually really thrilled with the way this is turned out. Actually, I thought it was gonna be way worse.
alright.
Like, it was bad. It was bad. Don't get me wrong. It was bad.
Alright.
But I thought it was gonna be worse. I mean, it still could be worse. We still don't know. But anyway. Lots of But anyway, I've thought about trying to do this a couple of times and I've stopped. Either because the group has decided to do something and took all my PowerPoints, you know how they get super needy, or whatever. But for starters, I could try the Sending Stone, which is no for surezies off the bat.
Try Sending
Kind of
Stone
what
to
happened.
whom?
Well, I've already talked to Avi about it, and he was okay with me doing it. I kind of put it off because I wasn't sure how you guys were gonna handle it. But since we've really gone so far, I could try to send a message to Tristan.
Trenton or Tristan?
Tristan.
Okay.
I feel like that's the safer of the two because we know way less about how Trenton's even alive, let alone why. Like, no offense, but like, why are you alive? In like a good way, but like weird also. So it's under suspect of everything until further notice. So I feel like Tristan would be the safer bet to at least try.
Okay.
But that, I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Your mother and I have filled in the blanks that we can. It's up to you now, and like we said before, we are here to support you in any way that we can. It's all up to you at this point.
I mean, why not? Let's just full send this puppy.
Okay. Now, you're not going to be able to do this while you're in this...
Not inside?
Yeah.
Okay. It worked for Suna!
That was a little different, though. A little different.
Kind
For reasons, it was a little different. Unknown reasons to you, but known reasons to me.
Unknown to me. How about I could give it to the dragon? The dragon could try and use the sending stone.
No.
Maybe.
Oh, man.
Okay. Okay. Well, Avi, anything that you need to dust off before we go?
Kind of like
You okay?
looks down at you and then says, "No." Besides, and then you see like his claw come behind your father and just kind of like boom, like bump him and like tap, because he's so big, like tapping him on the shoulder, saying like, "Hey, good job" or whatever. But it's more of a like, don't, like two guys like, you know, just getting at each other, you know, just being a little, just being rough with each other a little bit, and he goes, "I misjudged you a bit, and I apologize. And you've done well, as I said before." And he nods to your mother as well. "That's all I have. It is now up to you, young one, to chart your own path. They are here to support you, as am I. But it is your path to walk now."
Like we're sprinting, not gonna lie.
"Well, first we must walk before we can run." Wow,
I don't
that
know,
was
some
deep.
toddlers are pretty good runners.
Some toddlers fly first.
Their issue is they don't have any brakes. That's the
Some
only
people,
problem.
they only end up walking and running, and then some end up flying, but some, they just start flying right off the bat.
Look at you! That's the one. Yeah, it has been a sprint. Like, woof.
Okay. So, you end the session here within the...
Later.
Yep. End the session here with Avi, and then come back to finding yourself once again in the basement underneath the manor. And you
Well, since we're open to questions, you've opened this floodgate, just so you know. What is with all of these skulls? Why did we keep those? That's kind of gross.
That is not a question your mother and I can answer, really.
I was just wondering if that was a thing y'all did when you were like, yeah, I'm on a hunt. I got 3 heads this time or something. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of, like, accounting going on, you know, and trophies were nice and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure you mentioned about, or at least have said to your father before about why is all this information with Vela and Brutum Morbus, like, being guarded so much, and, like, why is it, like, being held secret from everybody? Like, what if something happened, like, and nobody knows how to fight against it or know anything about it, you know?
Oh, I was yelling at, what's his face? Galterus. I was yelling at Galterus about that.
Well, either way,
that's what it was.
That
was a big...
Tyrone is like, well, back in my prime and youth when I was fighting along Tristan and going on hunts, I
messed up.
Information was a little bit more available when it came to these creatures and hunting various powerful entities or creatures. So having this area or having displays for bringing to-be adventurers or those seeking information or knowledge, it was good to have, I guess you could say, some props to show and tell. To this extent, I don't believe was necessary, but
Yeah, there's quite a few.
your ancestors were very, very thorough in a lot of different ways, at least up until Tristan, whenever they researched cures and things like that. Any information was pertinent, and any new information was helpful, so anything that could possibly add new information to the situation was helpful. So whether it was a different size skull or the teeth being in a different spot, different length, like learning all of that information and whether or not it changes as they age or just various different things, it was all pertinent and useful and was needed in order to get us to, or get to where the information is that is found down here that you are able to find. So in some ways it was necessary, but at the same time, yes, it probably was a little excessive at the same time. But like I said, they were very, very thorough.
Question 2. Cells? These are cells, right? Like pointing down the... Like, those are cells?
Yes.
People can teleport. Isn't this place like... Wasn't that a bad idea?
But the question also is whether or not you would want to teleport into one of these cells.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. Especially if they're not around.
No.
Yeah. I've been waiting for that moment myself.
He leads you over to one of the cells, and shows you some writing and some stuff that are put on the cells. Is my understanding that the Belmonts put a safeguard in these that once an entity is in here, unless only they really had the means to opening these cages, or someone from the outside had to let the entity out. If you were to pop up a... what's it called? Detect empowerments, you would see that these cages do have a slight hue to them, and it's a green hue. Recalling a little bit, you remember it's not the same, but way back whenever the party was in Whetstone and you fought against Gilius and he had a system set up for all the cages for all of the miners that he was experimenting on that were in cages, where he was able to open the cages simultaneously. So something like that could be applied to these cages, where once somebody is in here, it's empowered, so the bars aren't just going to be able to just, be bent and whatnot, but also prevent them from just, teleporting in and out or blinking in and out, and you're just stuck in that cage until someone uses the command word or phrase to open the cell.
But could someone still farsight on that person? Or even if that person ever somehow got out and then they could teleport back in, like they know your secret base, isn't that dangerous?
Farsight, as you call it, hasn't been something that's been around all this time. This seems to be something that is new. Or at least, there might have been a few people in the past that might have been gifted this by the creator, but this isn't something that is widely known or used. This is a new ability that you and your friends have been gifted. Much like the sword was gifted to Elthiel.
Hey, you know that loan you gave me? When I was like, I want to be a farmer? I'll never guess which house I bought.
He just kind of rolls his eyes. Your mother just kind of
this isn't
like...
on purpose. This is not on purpose. We're making a greenhouse. It's gonna be cool. Yeah, we're gonna put Broodonbane and Bloodroot and all that fun stuff in there. It's gonna be cool. We've got like dug in the ground so that way it's cooler for the temperature. It's gonna be neat.
As you go on and they're kind of like rambling on, both of them just kind of like share a glance and smile of like, yeah, this is the Sibble we remember. This is why we love her. She just gets so excited and just rambles on.
This is why I can't do politics.
Like, yeah. Yep, despite all that, she's still our baby girl. My.
Oh, I got so distracted. Ooh, oh, yeah, wait, I have another thought.
Question 3. Do I know about...
Number 3!
About D's?
Yoink out the recall stone. Have you ever seen these?
Your mother is like shakes her head, and Tyrone is like has his eyes kind of like rolled back and has that look of like trying to recall, and then is like, I think I remember Tristan using them or having them like not even a handful of times, but they look familiar, like somewhat. What they do, I don't remember or can't say that I ever did know. I'm not entirely sure.
Hey, I found a bunch of them. Where did I find these? Low-key stole them from King's Harbor.
You found them in the compendium, the secret library underneath the temple.
The secret library, yep. Uh-huh. They teleport you to one specific location every time, always, once a day, with a keyword.
And...
So, like, this one, the one I'm explaining, this one takes you here to Morningdale.
Like
no,
here?
not like here, at the gates. To the gates.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah. I've got a couple other ones. One of them accidentally took me inside of a building, and that was awkward. I've definitely used it a lot since, actually. It's been entertaining.
Well, that is certainly interesting.
Yeah, remember how I told you I found just one of the other noble families?
Yes.
It showed up in his house.
Did you know him before you showed up?
Yes,
in his
thankfully.
House?
I did know him before.
Let's say that would have been a little awkward.
It was still awkward. It was still weird, because he was like, why are you here?
How did you get here?
It was an accident.
Oopsie!
Please. He was like, call first, and I was like, sure, and then proceeded to not do that immediately. Yeah.
Sadly, your mother and I have not really kept up with any of those older noble families throughout the years. Tristan was the only one that we really kept in contact with, and then, of course, after Nelriel died, he just kind of fell off the face of the earth, and there was no communication whatsoever, and until he asked, us to come and visit, to come and take you. So, but other than that, we've had no communication with any of the other royal families, at least the older ones.
That's what he said. He was like, no one calls me anymore. I don't have friends. It's sad. That's not what he said. That's my interpretation.
Is this... which family is this individual from?
I want to say the Mendoza family.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it a family there? Or is he by himself, or...
Yes, he told me about his parents. They're traveling, and he's just there.
For how long have they been traveling?
I've no idea.
Interesting.
He took over the family business, and they were like, great, you do all the work, we're out of here, vacation. So...
As I said, your family was different, at least the way that things turned out. But it's nice to know that not all the noble families seems to have fallen to similar fates as the Belmonts. Not that we would wish them to, but...
No, definitely not. No.
They saw enough fighting and death and pain and hurt through all the Great War and afterwards. I suppose they deserve a moment of peaceful enjoyment of life as well and traveling.
But he's not gonna get one. He's friends with me, so...
They chuckle a bit.
He's actually, he's teaching me their, fighting thing. Yeah.
Or perhaps it will teach you some of the old traditional fighting styles, possibly.
He's like a nice dude, and then it's like, I'm your teacher now, and it's like awful.
Well, it seems that he was brought up in the traditional sense of the noble families. They were very... From what my interactions were and my understanding, at least of Tristan explaining at least his upbringing, they had times where they were, happy, typical family, loving family, but when it came down to training, they were very strict and very hard on their young or their children, and teaching them how to fight and hunt down and basically go into the family business, as it were. So,
I mean, that makes sense.
And in some cases, I can't speak for... Well, I can only assume that not all noble families are the same, but I can imagine that some of them probably were stricter. Maybe some were a little bit more lenient, but perhaps his family was very, at least when it came to training, was very, straightforward and militaristic. I don't know.
I mean, it would track his, actual job is pretty intense, so...
And maybe it's just because of that. I don't know. But
could be both.
Could be both.
I don't know. Oh, I had another thought, and it's, gone now. You're welcome. Oh! The other ritual thing I was doing! Right, sending stone. I have this all under control. This is great. Everything.
That revelation wasn't as bad as I thought. Oh, I can't think straight.
Sorry,
it's so much! Okay, great.
Okay.
Got the answers I wanted. Now I have more.
Are you kidding? I still have more questions. I have a list. Parents, I want you to know I have a list. I just have been waiting because I was like way so afraid to ask you. And now I'm not, so get ready. Anyway.
Okay. Well, I can't. Let's not do all those questions tonight.
No, it's okay. Definitely not all of them. But we'll start here.
Okay.
Oh no, I don't know what to say. Like, low key hold it out like you do it.
Who are you holding it out to?
Anyone?
They just kind of stand there and like look at you
No.
like.
You just talk at it. You think about who you want the message to go to, and you just talk at it.
Your mom reaches out and puts a hand on your shoulder and says, I think it's best that you do this.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay. Hey.
Just hey.
You talk it again first.
Okay.
Does
So-
it even like hit? Like, is there even a ping?
There's a few seconds go by whenever you go to activate the sending stone, and you're like, okay, it should have, like, usually it connects by now, like maybe it's not going to connect, but then you get that return feeling of ding, it finds its mark. And you say, hey.
Yeah. Yep. And then I forget that I'm on call, and I turn, I'm like, oh my goodness, it connected, you guys, it worked! And he hears all of that because it does not filter.
Okay. There's a few seconds go by
I
with
just
no.
broke my marker.
Oh dear.
The enthusiasm was so strong.
A few seconds go by with no response. And you hear back in a very, like, stone cold, like, tone and very, like, straightforward, and it just feels cold. Who is this?
Oh, right. My name's Sibble. Am I talking to Tristan?
Tristan is dead.
That was one of the few unfortunate moments where your mic cut out.
The response you get back is, Tristan is dead.
Ah. I'm really sorry to hear that. Big fan, new adventurer trying to figure out how to adventure. I read he was really cool, so I thought I'd ask.
It's just quiet on the other end.
Okay, yeah, so... Okay, call you later. Yeah, definitely expect that in the future. Have a great day!
You hear essentially you hear back a like just like a grunt noise essentially, like but it's more of a, it's almost bestial sounding. It's just like, that's it.
Okay. It totally worked. He's definitely grumpy.
They look at you like, what do you mean it worked and he's grumpy?
Well, it worked, meaning it connected. Like, he's there. He's grumpy, meaning he was like, go away, don't talk to me.
Okay, so you're saying Tristan is alive?
Well, he said Tristan was dead, but yeah.
I thought you
What
were
name did he go by?
Who were you trying to contact then? If not Tristan?
Definitely Tristan. You know how you said he changed his name in the past and was like, I'm not Tristan anymore because I'm Moody? Well, he did that again apparently, and Tristan is dead. Which makes sense.
Your father begins like pacing back and forth again, like essentially like has his like hand up to his head and just like pacing back and forth. You've seen him do this multiple times when he's just like, when you've really done something that either disappointed him and he's just thinking of like, okay, like how do I handle this, or just
I see
like,
that face a lot, yeah, apparently.
You know, like just that kind of thing. I'm just like, okay, what could it mean? What do I do? Like, I need a moment to like, and your mom is just like, so why? Where has he been all this time? That's your father speaks up and says, that's what I would like to know. Why haven't we heard anything? Why has he not been around? Like, where did he go? What has he been doing?
It didn't sound okay.
And that, like, I just, like, if he's been around this entire time and then he, like, turns around and he sees you, like, and he's like, doesn't matter. What's done is done. What he's done is done. And the decision that he has made, has been made. There's no going back on that. And I'm sure if he didn't come and find us, that he had a reason for it. And you see him, like, kind of look off to the side and under his breath, which he would assume you can't hear, but he forgets that you're Bruno Morbus and you have heightened hearing, so, but you hear him say, I hope. Well, I guess that's good news to know that he's still alive. It's a little out of thin air. It appears that you're not the only one that got answers today. Even though we didn't really get answers with this, it's more... I mean, we did, but now I have more questions. Is this how and then he just kind of like gets that look of like, oh yeah, that must be what this feels like.
That's exactly what it feels. Yeah, there you got it now.
Family like family.
Heyo.
You want to come in? You can come in. Okay.
Hello. Oh yeah. Hello.
She said, hello, how are you?
Figuration of the tree. Hello. A hand emerges from the shadows.
Is this the whole Doctor Strange thing? A random hand just coming out of the wall, grabbing a book, and whoop.
Terrible.
Hello.
Hello. We should be done here momentarily.
Oh, stick a fork in him. He's done.
Done.
Dun,
Dun 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 dun. So,
well, that's at least one question put out there. And Brilio's pretty darn sure that that's Tristan for some reason. The other guy. You were just like, there's... Sorry, I'm verbally processing.
You're talking about the one that had black hair?
Yeah.
Your
maybe.
father shakes his head and was... Tristan didn't have black hair.
Trenton.
Trenton.
There are too many T names.
Yeah.
All of my grandparents, it's awful. It's like someone orchestrated this to be confusing.
It's like, you know, when I go through some of my notes of, like, some of the previous sessions for, like, oh, this author wrote this book, or this book was about this person, and I'm like, why do all these names have to be, like, so similar? I'm like, what was I thinking?
What were you thinking? Has been my question this whole time.
Oh,
Dude.
that's great. I've literally started to make a document that has a bunch of names and, like, all the history about them and whatnot, so that I'm like, oh yeah, this person. Let me look that up real quick to remind myself.
I feel the same way.
Like, at first I didn't need it, but now I'm just like, well, yeah, I might need this.
Yeah. Yes. So, we have a probable Trenton. We definitely have a Tristan. We have a weird primordial Morbus dude floating around. It's all coming together in some weird circle.
It's not like a real circle, it's more like a freaky circle.
It's like a weird circle. I see what... Yeah. Oh, shoot.
Don't shoot.
I'm gonna hate the answer to this. I'm gonna call my mom. My other mom. The one that I've only seen in visions.
Annabelle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not gonna like this answer. Oh.
Okay.
Gosh. I have to do it though. I have to know for sure, Z's.
You sense the stone reaching out, searching for purchase on this individual, and the signal comes back without actually finding purchase or finding its target.
I knew it. I hate that I knew it.
Your mother and your father see the look on your face and it's like, what's wrong?
As I look at my notes, Annabelle didn't make it.
And you know that for sure? How do you know?
Because I have seen her in the vision. I know what she looks like. I know who I'm intending to send this message to. It would connect.
Well,
Unless there's some weird...
Maybe.
thing,
I mean, there
like,
is
looking at
still...
the cell,
just because
unless
it
there's
did
some
not
weird this
connect, it does not mean that she is gone.
What does that mean?
He signals over to the cages.
Yeah, that's
Or
what
the
I
cells.
just said out loud, yeah.
The ability
The
that
long
you are
stretch, though.
using for this stone, I'm not capable of doing it, but if I
Yeah, me
understand correctly, it's been around for some time. And I can imagine that during that time there probably has been a way found to possibly hide somebody from receiving messages from empowerments or items like this. Just as with this new gift from the creator that you and your friends have attained, I'm sure if it persists for or continues to be something that you're able to utilize, I can only imagine that the deceiver, as so many times before, finds some way to duplicate and to find some way to combat.
Like, immediate, yeah.
But as
I've
I
already
said,
been mentally slapped. It's not been fun.
well, but you've still succeeded in, like, actually viewing and seeing and hearing the person, yes?
Yeah, but only sometimes. Like, I showed you when... My goodness. I always get Viren and Thyrani's name messed up now. Viren went into that room. Wherever that room is sealed off from those kinds of things, too.
Okay. So,
otherwise, it wouldn't have ended there.
well, it might be right now that that they are only capable of using stationary objects or being able to put it on certain rooms or stationary objects for now, but I'm sure given time it would be able to even be applied to items that they could be able to wear, and it would keep you from viewing them. I can imagine. Just as I can imagine if they are able to duplicate the ability that you've been gifted, you would probably want the same thing, something to combat them from peeking in and looking at you. So.
Yeah, that would be nice. We just don't.
And as I said, I believe this ability has been occasionally gifted to some in the past, so perhaps there are items, old items, artifacts that already inherently have those, and maybe somebody already created some. I don't know, but it's a possibility, and I know it's a stretch, but
hey, that's stretchy as most of my theories, so.
But as for Annabelle, it would not be impossible or even that difficult to create a cell or living space or something of that nature, or an item even that she must wear that keeps from this type of communication.
Well, and if that's the case, Kristen's not the same way. They'd have to have been split up or something if you're going with that theory.
Yes, it would seem that way. And maybe he is aware of her situation, and maybe that's why he is acting the way he is. I can only speculate.
I don't know. Let's see.
Well, as we've
There's
said,
this, like, weird look that, like, comes over Sibble that's like, hold on a second. That means Sasha knew I was adopted and never said anything. Oh, how'd you get her to be quiet?
Sasha? Which one is Sasha? I'm sorry.
She's my older sister.
Yep.
How did you convince her to be quiet?
I guess that's just a thing that we as parents... Oh, it's also a blessing and probably a miracle from the Creator as well. To be honest. She also loves you very deeply, and we had a very serious conversation as well, explaining the severity and the importance of her not saying anything, so... But we will make sure to inform all of them at home that you know everything at this point.
Cool. I mean, not cool, but like cool.
We will still not treat you any different, but at the same time, we aren't going to, like, proclaim it all over the place or make it very evident or anything like that. It's not going to be, declared or anything. It will just be something known between us as family. At least I think that would be what is in your best interest anyway.
I think so for now, for sure. Low-key. Super duper. Like the duperest of low-keys. Do you remember that one cleric from King's Harbor that met you when we were out and was telling you where we were in, like, Whetstone? Blonde elf boy?
I believe Isaac was his name.
Oh man, you cut out again.
I believe Isaac was his name.
Yeah. You didn't, like, dislike him or anything.
No, not really. I didn't have a problem with him.
Good. No reason.
Okay. Your mother gets, like, a look in her eye of, like... Like, okay. Sibble?
And I don't know what you're talking about.
Your father's clueless.
That's great. Oh! Hold on, let me look at my notes. Let me just double check I've got everything. I have my dog right here. I have my notes. Everything's great. I said this, I said that. Man. Oh. Dude, I want to figure Trenton out so badly. So badly. Like, I cannot express how badly.
How bad do you want to know, like, how it's possible and how he's still alive and all that?
Yeah, like, really a lot. But I'm also, like, really concerned about poking it and, like, waking up something awful by accident that I'm glad we're not ready for. Just because I don't have a... I know you're, like, really knowledgeable about, like, Bruta Morbis and, like, Phala Morbis and what they can do. I'm very unfamiliar. I just know, like, some bullet points. So, from what I understand, they can, like, mind control the people that they, like, turn into Phala Morbis, more or less. And that sounds really bad and probably Trenton direction of things, so I don't want to make it complicated before it is way too complicated. If that makes sense.
I love where your brain goes sometimes. It's great. It's great.
Yep. Ah, that was what it was. So last time I was like, Dad should show me some cool maneuvers, right? And it would be probably ideal for him to do it in, like, the sword, where he doesn't, like, physically have to do it, because then he could, like, show me without his... But, I mean, if you have time, there is, like, a sand pit.
Say that again?
You want to show me some cool fencing?
Oh, yeah, he can...
We have a sand pit.
He can try to show you. I mean, he's
he's
not exactly in his prime anymore.
I know, that's why I was like, in the dragon would be a great spot, because then he's like only mentally doing it, not like physically doing it. Yeah, he won't mind.
Sure, I mean, he can show you some stuff and show you some
Absolutely.
of the... Yeah.
Yeah.
Little
Show me
daughter-father
the
bonding.
Killer 2000, please. I might be needing one of those.
Oh, dear. Alright.
Okay.
Anything else you want to cover tonight before we close it up and call it?
Think we're pretty good. I'll give my mom some monster sketches that I've got going. Monster sketches as requested. Because
Okay.
you're into that for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, she thinks you're very good at drawing and art and everything, so...
Well, I am, so... But yeah, these are the monsters. I specifically have one that I've got ready of the Yeti.
Okay.
So it's like this all black and white, like pencil, just black and white, except for the Yeti's eyes that are blue.
Okay.
So it's 3 Yeti attacking in a snowstorm. And the concept is like it's black and white, so the color like draws your gaze to look at the eyes, which is ironic because that's what they do in real life, and they also have this paralyzing hypnotic gaze, so you're not supposed to look at their eyes, but you want to because it's the only thing of color out there. They're tricky like that. So I've tried to draw it like that. So there's like, it's hard to tell, but there's like this, but it's also like in grayscale except for the eyeballs.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a painting too, but I don't think... We did a lot of talking, so I don't think I finished it.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't know.
Well, there was also, like, the whole interruption of, like, going into
I
the dragon
I
and
think
then sending stone, and, yeah, we'll say it's a quarter of the way done.
It's, I've got it, yeah. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you're trying to do, I don't know how involved you were planning on making it or what you're actually trying to paint.
But all written out. I've got it. I've got them like lined up.
Oh, okay.
Paintings. So the one I was gonna do was gonna be called Rulers of the Ruins, right? Because it's gonna be the Nagumba and the Sintrapra. And the Sintrapra is like in the middle, all standing tall with all of its legs, and the Nagumba are on the sides of like the ruins, and you're like looking at it this way.
Okay.
That's the concept of this particular piece.
Okay.
But I probably have like the grays and the blues and like the browns ready, and like some of the outlines of the building, but I don't think I got quite finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
So next time, work in progress.
Yeah.
More monsters, cause you just like monsters, Mom.
Well, they're interesting. What can I say?
I mean, they are pretty interesting. I really want a Nagumba, like, so bad. They're so cool.
Well, I mean, probably not the
like,
safest thing, though.
You need a spot for it, but
yeah.
I mean, they're so cool. They're like dogs, but lizards and bigger than you. They're great. Yeah. Was there anything I should know to do or like to not do specifically before you go?
The only thing, really is, like we said, give us some time to see what we can find out when it comes to this Viren and the McLachlan family. I mean, your mother and I are pretty certain that this is the same individual from Tristan's past, and if that's the case, there's no telling what he may be holding over, the McLachlan family, or what kind of influence, or whether they're just, working together and he is willingly working with this Viren. I don't know.
What do you know about
About what?
Mythborough? The
Mythborough, the only thing of note is there is a well-known associate of the McLachlan family that is I guess you could say a ruling family for that town, but their town's kind of set up similar to how Arbordale is, where there's two ruling families that kind of oversee the town, and there's a close associate of the McLachlan family that is one of those families.
There's one other. You know how McClure, who previously owned this house, was a Vela Morbus. He got asked to go here. You remember the guy who told him to find the Belmont secret? And then turned him into a Vela Morbus.
And you believe that to be Trenton, yes.
Yeah. He first talked to him in Mythborough. Like, Brantley's from Mythborough. Originally.
Strange.
So, it just seems weird that those two would, connect a little bit there. So that just makes Mythborough just a little bit sus.
Well, strange, but not...
I mean, it's not anything necessarily concrete, but...
Well,
from
again...
the last 4 months, most coincidences have not been coincidences.
Again, we're talking about that the town is run by a close associate of the McLachlan family, which seemed to be in... what's the right word? Working with this Viren individual, and Viren seems to be tied in some way, possibly to this maybe Trenton, and I would say there's no coincidence at all that McClure is from Mythborough and was sent here. More than likely, it was either Trenton that sent him here, either of his own choice, or Viren wished him to come here. Or wished him to find someone to come here. And they used their close associate in Mythborough to connect the dots, perhaps.
I I pretty much agree with that synopsis. I just don't really know what to do about it, if anything. Like, I just don't know if it's helpful or if it'll do one of those, like, tips you off to, they're onto us, which we don't want in any way.
Have you encountered Viren at all personally, or has it only been through this far sight?
Have I encountered what?
Viren, personally.
Oh. No. No. Just with Farsight.
I see. And this, maybe Trenton is the same way.
Yeah. He's the one that... I mean, he matches the description of whom Brantley saw. Dark hair, elf guy.
I only asked that because I can't imagine the organization that you and your friends have been fighting against or looking into. I can't imagine that they're not communicating with each other, and if you are becoming as much of a thorn in the side as you seem to be for them, I mean, he may know of your group, but not maybe you specifically, and know your connection. Possibly. Don't know. Hopefully not.
I don't know.
And you said that Trenton... What was the reason that Trenton...
He's the most annoying.
What was the reason for Trenton sending McClure here anyway? Or what was he looking for?
And I quote, the Belmont secret.
They both kind of
Which I
share...
would have thought would be him.
They kind of share a glance, and then they're like... So apparently they know that... I can't imagine, like, if... Again, if this entity, Viren, is who we think he is, he already knew where the Belmont Manor was. I can't imagine it would be too difficult to know that there was an underground basement here. Now, maybe McClure was sent here, or Brantley was sent here to try to gain access, but I can't imagine that they didn't know that this underground was here, and why they would want to get in here is beyond me.
There'd be something in here, right?
The only other thing that I can think of that was secret, and the only ones that knew about it were your mother and I, and Tristan and Annabelle was, well, you.
Figure that out down here. There's nothing down here.
That we know of.
But
they don't know that either. At least, that's the way it seems.
I mean, if they're looking for a skull, I'm sure they'll find one.
I don't know, but in conjunction with the fact that that Tristan is alive somehow, and they're looking for the Belmont secret, maybe that is the reason why he never came looking for you or for us, is because he was unable to get rid of the threat, and he figured it would be safer to stay away.
Maybe.
It's the only thing I can think of. Unless... that all makes sense. If this indeed, maybe Trenton is Trenton. Who's to say that Tristan did indeed track down this Viren, but was given an ultimatum of some sort, or was so overwhelmed with finding out that Trenton was alive all this time.
That's fairly intense.
Maybe with that realization, he wasn't able to finish the job. I don't know. But this Viren is still alive, and your father is still alive somehow. I don't know. But the only thing that I can think of that they wouldn't know about is you.
I guess.
Maybe your father was unable to end it. And maybe he is hoping that why he would put such a burden on his own daughters beyond me, but maybe he's hoping that you can be his secret weapon and end it once and for all. I don't know.
I don't really know at all. I just... I mean, I've got immortals telling me to go do things. I've got random crud happening. Trying to not let everything burn. Yeah, it's been so much fun. So sprinting it is.
But I don't think your brother or your father would have ever imagined that you would have put together such a closely knitted, almost family type of group that looks out for each other and fights for each other. You're not alone, and your father, for much of his life, especially after what happened, was alone, or at least had to go about this fighting these things alone. But you don't have to. You have your friends. And for what it's worth, you have your mother and I.
Worth a lot.
So.
Apparently, Avi remembers a lot more than he told me he did. However, still not everything. So maybe I'll get him patched up, and then he won't have any more excuses.
Mainly, the only thing that he doesn't remember at this point, and it's the key for unlocking like the rest of his latent abilities for the sword, is what transpired to make him as he is now. What transpired between him and his immortal, and what happened to, get him to this point where he's been put into an item, essentially. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's the only thing really that's left to push it over the tipping point, essentially.
Pry from his greedy, grubby little heads. Okay. Yeah. So I was pretty sure he said that no one really ever visited him in the last, while. So I just assumed, I guess, that meant nobody.
Well, what seems like a few years
I'm gonna have to ask him
here, when you're in the sword, you know, you can spend hours in there and come back and it's only like moments later. So for him, he's been in that sword for eons and eons and eons.
Way too long.
And, you know, what happened to Tristan happened, and then all of a sudden Tristan wasn't using him anymore, wasn't talking to him, communicating with him, anything like that, and his strength began to wither, and he just, you know, had no bond with anybody, so the weapon began to rust and decay and such. And it was left behind whenever Tristan and Annabelle left, apparently, because Cathorn had it.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, did you know Avi has sisters? Just kind of chilling out there. We met them once. They have 3 heads.
Okay. So they're, Hydra?
Kinda. Well, Hydras like respawn their heads. They just have 3 total.
I see. And they're
There's Melusa, Suna, and Rasa? Maybe?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
Very good.
Look at me.
Interesting. No, we didn't. I did not know that. We did not know that.
I didn't know that either. Actually, I didn't even find that out. Everyone else found that out while they went to an island paradise while I was here trying to study. Yeah.
Once
Was I
again,
here?
kind of a...
No, I was in King's Harbor.
Yes, you were in King's Harbor.
Yeah, I was in King's Harbor.
Once again, kind of speaks to how fortunate you are to have the friends that you do.
For sure. I'm pretty sure every Belmont needs, like, a Van Mazda. I'm pretty sure. Like, that's just written in history now. Pretty sure.
Alright. Anything else we want to cover?
Is there anything else I
Hark,
need to cover?
someone enters the room once again.
Hark.
The arm is about to come across the screen.
Oh! Ah!
Oh,
The elf
oh it's a
captured
leg
it.
this time, apparently.
Whoa! We got knees! Folks, we have knees on the screen!
Oh, dear me.
I think that kind of covers it. I can't think of anything else that's super important.
Okay.
I know of. I mean, I've pretty much already told them everything about the adventures anyway. So.
Sorry. My wife's over here just...
Turtling.
Yeah, just
Turtling.
doing whatever she's doing.
He's what to do, which makes sense.
I am a turtle.
I was looking for the right words to say without making it seem awkward while I'm recording this, so that's why I was like, she's doing whatever she's doing.
And
hedgehog.
And then they PG-13. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
So...
I'm a hedgehog.
Alright, Kim. If you don't
I
have
think
anything
that pretty
else,
much wraps it up.
yep, we can just wrap it up. And
Have a good
for
night.
how long this went, I'll just probably end up doing this as a separate video, because
It's almost 3 hours.
yeah, it's going on like 2.5 hours here.
Cool.
So I don't think adding that on to the end of the session or putting that in as a break is going
So
to
it's
work all
5
that
hours
great.
plus 2.5.
So
Yeah. Okay. No, that was good.
oh, that's the magnet that flew the one time when we were home.
Oh.
Oh, that's where it
that.
went. I knew we'd find it eventually.
Nice.
Good thing I
I found my magnets.
Okay. All right, Kim. Well, that's where we will call it.
Yeah. Sweet. Thanks, Colton.
Yep. Have a good
Glad we
night.
cleared that up. Glad my dad does not hate Isaac. Perfect. Everything is where we want it.
Everything is as we... Not exactly how we'd like it, but sure. Things are looking up for once, it seems.
Yay!
And we got answers, and we got there!
I don't feel like I have to walk on eggshells next to my parents anymore. This is great.
Woo!
Or Avi, for that matter. Everything is finally smooth-ish.
Character development. Not on Sibble's part, but everybody else's.
But everybody else around me.
Why is everybody else being so weird when they're around me?
Yes.
Do I have something on my face? I swear.
It's called your face. That's what's on your
No, it's just you. You just singled all of me.
It's called
Yes,
you.
exactly.
The entirety.
Yeah. Good things.
Alright. Alright,
Well,
Kim.
it's nice to know that at least I didn't even have to ask if my siblings were mad at me because they were like, yeah, they kind of didn't know, but then they did, and I told them it was great, so it's good.
Yeah.
I probably would have been mad at me if I were my sibling, let's be honest.
Why? Why?
Holmes like, I have
Hey,
no
my
idea what
parents
that
decided
feels
to bring you home one day, and now you're making a wreck out of everything. I'm a little unhappy about that.
Yeah.
I'd be unhappy.
like. It happens.
Yeah.
I'm just, that's another positive. It's been fairly positive other than all the negatives. So that's great.
Something like that.
Alright, Kim. Have a good night.
Good night, Marie. Good night, Colton. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.